I'm Doth Savick, and this is my 2021 In the Bag. It's been just about a year now since I put out my last In the Bag video, or first I should say, and quite a few things have changed. For one, I'm just over 2 months now playing in Illinois instead of Utah. That's, I've dropped around 4,000 feet elevation. I knew that was going to change things in how I saw my mids and drivers fly, and it sure has. It's been interesting to go back and start testing some molds that I had thrown closer to sea level before, and they just weren't quite doing the thing I needed at high elevation. I've slowly been mixing some of those back into the bag. I don't feel like I'm, at a concrete spot. I like trying new discs and too much to set them all aside and not go back to them. So I expect I'll change even some more things. For one, last year I was putting with a 2-putter setup. I was using Lunas and Fierces. I'm still doing a 2-putter setup, but I don't have Discraft in here anymore. I had switched over to Voodoos and was using them alone, and those worked really well for me until wind started to pick up, and then I knew I needed something a little bit more beefy than just these Wizards to do the trick. I've been trying Wizards in a few different plastics. These two that I have here are the Triple S, super stupid soft or silly soft, or I forget what all the S's they use, but the texture on these is really nice. It's not like so soft that they get warped or anything like that easily, but it is soft enough I can dig my thumb into them. This plastic is so good when wet. That's one of the things that impressed me the most about it, playing winter rounds and just rainy rounds. I didn't any longer feel like I had to dry my putters off every time. I honestly just let them get wet, and I play with them wet, and the grip stays fine. That's so much less effort when you don't have to constantly try to completely dry every disc. So they get huge points for that alone. I've played a little bit around with gateway putters before, and I'm really happy to find that these are working well for me. I have a bunch of these on the rack behind me, all these purple ones down here. Those are all Voodoos, and then the rack below them are mostly Wizards. I got a little, I think this was, I forget what they called this stamp. I like this stamp on there. I got a number of pairs of those. And then Wizards. These I just picked up locally. Since I have so stocked up on so many, I've kind of been rotating them in pairs. So I'm just getting them like lightly seasoned. You can see, these have been used. These are maybe just in the bag for 2 weeks or something now. And that's how chunked up they've got from that. I'll probably be rotating these out again for a fresh pair and just kind of keep cycling them that so my whole stack stays pretty similar, the same. I got these ones from my new local shop, one of the two that's here, Plastic Addicts. They had some really nice stamps, and I just snagged a couple of pairs, discs same color, stamp same color. These ones are just the SS, so not quite as soft, but then they also have the little bit of, I don't know what they call that, their AGL calls it the hemp. I don't know what Gateway calls it, but the little bit of speckles in there, just a touch more firm than the Triple S that I've got in there, but still that grip is just so good. It's they're just great for playing in wet weather. I can't say enough good things about them. Some days I'll putt with one more than the other. Definitely if the wind kicks up, then I'm going more with the Wizard. Sometimes I'll switch it up and it'll be Wizard inside the circle, and then as soon as I get to that really longer distance, I go with the more understable Voodoo and let it float in there. I do still have a habit in the bag. I actually have snagged a whole bunch of habits since that last in the bag video. This is a top line. I had a main line in there last time. I've kind of shifted over to this top line. It's a little bit more rubbery, a little more tacky feel to it, and I like that grip a little bit better. I will say that in my last few rounds, I've not thrown this. I was leaning on these like really, really hard, especially in all the new tight woods courses that I've got around here. But I think it's coming out of the bag. I think I'm done with these, so it's still kind of preliminary. I didn't want to completely take it out for this video, but I'm not sure that you're going to see it next time. What's taken over for that, well, I'm kind of skipping a beat here, but this disc does cover a couple slots for me. This is a Comet. I did have both Comets and Meteors in the bag last time, and the Meteor didn't make the cut. I said that the Comet was a little bit uncomfortable grip-wise to me, and I've been experimenting more with just going, and I had been power gripping. I power gripped almost everything except wind putting, and I've gone heavily over to fan grip now, and have been working on that, getting more wrist angle, more spin, and especially going with fan grip. The Comet's just doing amazing things, and this is I think they call this a glow jawbreaker blend. I have no idea if this glows. I didn't test that. I didn't play with it. But I have a stack of these now. This one is super beat up. I've got some holes in it. I don't know if you can tell the nose over here is bent. This has got run over by a car in the road. It's hit lots of trees hard. It's just as flippy as can be. In that fan grip really lower power range, if I'm trying to throw it 200 feet, something like that, I can pretty much match what the Habit was doing, and that's why the Habit's going to come out of the bag, because I can just remove one entire mold with the Comet in this really beat up, or plastic that beats up really well. It can do short straight shots for me really well, and if I power this thing up, then it's got lots of flip and turn. So we're kind of skipped a layer there in speed, but even though it's a little bit faster disc, it's definitely not a putter. I'm using it a lot in those shorter ranges. If we go back down to our putter speeds, I do have a couple more in here. I had been last time I had a premium plastic Luna, and this has sort of taken over for that. I was throwing this is a Glow 2.0 Envy. This had kicked the Tactic out of my bag just in the last few weeks that I was up playing in Utah. This turns out it was handling forehands just fine for me. It's not like quite as much fade maybe as the Tactic, but it was close enough that I realized I was covering all of those shots and I could pull the Tactic out of the bag. Of course, coming down to low elevation, this wasn't a trusty forehand. It didn't have as much dump to it. I still do forehand this, but it's usually a straight shot or an Annie shot that'll bring it out. If I want that beefier fade, something I can really trust and crank on, then I'm going with this TI Flex Zone. So this is a slot that didn't exist for me. I didn't need anything this beefy up at elevation. The Tactic covered that slot. So I've kind of split it. What the Tactic was doing up there, I've now split into two discs for better definition. And I throw both of these a lot. Both of these are getting a lot of use. Mostly just forehand for the zone, but the Envy goes both ways. I throw that thing forehand and backhand. I definitely can throw the Envy quite a bit further, but it's not too often that I'm unloading on that Envy backhand. If I have a pretty straight up shot right around 300 feet, maybe 280 or so, and I want to hit that distance just right, I'm pull out my rangefinder, that's one that I'll check, and standstill backhand on slight hyzer at a good solid pull for me, and this Envy will go right about there. That's one of the spots where I throw this thing backhand most. Some just generic up shots, I'll just pull this out because I know the plastic's super durable and throw it for that. Kind of in that same realm that I just mentioned for the Envy, using it for distance control. I've got a super beefy mid in here. I've pulled this drone and put it in the bag. Just how I didn't really have a slot for the zone last at high elevation. I didn't really have a slot for need anything quite as beefy as the drone either. This is the Presnell Tour Series. You can just see a little bit of the stamp left on there. I wiped most of it off, but the print was so deep you can still see it kind of ghosting on there. I pretty much do not throw this thing forehand. It'll do really similar stuff to the zone forehand for me, and I just like the feel of the zone better. I do use this backhand. Again, it's for distance control. If I know I don't want to go past maybe 320 or so, a lot of times that's even on a standstill shot still. Pull out the rangefinder, see that I'm at about that distance, and if there's wind or whatever, it doesn't matter much for this disc. I can grip this and rip it, and it's going to have a good solid fade. And it's not accidentally going to go, 360 for me or something like that, especially on a standstill. So I'm utilizing that beef in wind and for distance control, and it's doing a good job. It doesn't come out much, but I've been playing so many courses blind, having to use that rangefinder a lot, and this just helps me hit like a certain target distance. For the rest of my mids here, I do have a second Comet to pair with. I've got rubber blends, I've got Jawbreaker Comets, and I'm not sure that I'm going to need to cycle them in. Maybe just keeping one really beat up one in here is enough, but I like to pair it with a really nice stable one as well. And this new Tour Series Johansson is just spot on. I've got a twin of this, same stamp, same color and everything. I really like the stamp on this one, the colors of it. This had a lot of flashing on it, and I spent a couple days just dropping it on T-pads and rubbing it around, and that pretty much took care of it. If I go fan grip and do a full send on this, it's pretty much dead straight. It just has like the faintest bit of late turn. If I power grip, it's a different story, and we're talking different distances, but with that fan grip, kind of a full send, this thing in the mid 300s is just a straight line. It's a really nice woods disc. I'm not getting that flip up movement that I get with this one, but a lot of times if I'm trying to hit a later gap, then I like the fact that it doesn't have movement. I just try to get it out there straight and let it go. So I'm all in on the Comets. They've really been treating me well. If I do want more of a, well, I guess I had the Buzzz in there last time, so something similar to that. I can hit a little bit harder and not have to worry as much about it turning. Then I'm going with the Reactor, and I've got two in here. We've got the Glow, and then we've got I want to say this is Neutron, but it's almost like a little plasma looking 2021 Worlds stamp from the Fort. The Glow one is definitely a little bit beefier, but I've also beat it up more, so there's not like a huge difference between these two and how they fly. I really just got on the MVP and Axiom bandwagon pretty hard after watching James win Worlds. I think a bunch of people tried out a lot of new MVP and Axiom plastic right then, and I'm totally one of them. I don't know that this does a whole lot that I can't do with the Buzzz. I could put Buzzes back in the bag and I think I'd be just fine. I will say that this feels like a lower and flatter profile to me, and that makes it much more comfortable for me to get these out on comfortable with the forehand grip. And I don't love the way that the Buzzz feels on forehand, so I throw these nearly as much on forehand as I do backhand. If I really, really get after this hard, I will get a little bit of flip up on it, or if I'm out straight, then I can get a little bit of turn. But for the most part, I'm keeping these on hyzers. If I want to put like a little medium amount of hyzer and throw it pretty hard, it's just really consistent in what it'll do for me. On forehand, I do get some more flip out of them, and that's just because my forehand's not quite as clean. So I'm generally not leaning on them really hard if I'm using it for a forehand shot. It's a little bit more of a utility shot forehand where I know that if I'm thinking the zone is going to hook up a little too early for me, then I'll go to one of these for the forehand, and it'll just carry out much longer with a little less serious fade compared to the zone. This guy was still in here last year, and it's not gone anywhere. This is my D-line FD, just beat to snot. I've been A lot of courses here I'm finding that there's old growth trees and huge canopies, and the canopies pull down pretty low. So sometimes there's a canopy at 200 feet and then a canopy at 400 feet, and then the basket's buried, you know, deep 60, 70, 80 feet under that last canopy. And that's a really attractive time for me to think, oh, I'm going to get a roller down, you know, get that roller down under the first canopy and let it go all the way and just take a bunch of those obstacles out. This has been my main roller for the longest time. It is too flippy here. It works. I'm able to do some stuff with it, but I've realized that I really need something more stable, and I got a stack of discs behind my bag here, and I'm testing out a number of new discs for rollers right now. Pro Thunderbird might be the one. Not sure on that yet, but this is still my main roller duty. I have been experimenting a little bit rollers with the Hokum Neutron Crave. This one is really shiny. It's brand new. I just lost one. I just lost the main one I'd been throwing in the water, so this is a backup. I've only got a few throws on it now. A little lighter weight, 168 grams. This is a thrower for me. It's not in here as a roller, but I've been working with it some as a roller, and definitely noticeably more cut angle when it hits the ground compared to what I get with the D-Line FD. These, I've been pairing the Neutron with the Cosmic, and the Cosmic ones I've been bringing in are heavier, 175 grams versus the 168. That helps me get even more differentiation between these two flights. The Hokum ones are kind of known to be a little more flippy anyways, and then once I go, you know, 7 grams, 6 grams heavier and up to the Cosmic Neutron, there's a noticeable difference in how these fly. I leaned on these super hard when I first got here and was trying to hit these long woods gaps. I'm getting a lot more turn out of these than I was at high elevation, both plastics, and I've just used that to my advantage. That's let me take some speed off of them and get similar flight shape to what I used to. So I can hit a gap pretty far away with these, you know, 350 to 400 foot woods shots where I'm trying to keep low ceiling and, you know, flip up into some tunnels. I'm leaning on these two guys really heavy. In the bag last year, I did not have discs between Craves, and I think I went straight to Firebirds after that. That T-Bird, Thunderbird slot just kind of wasn't very useful for me up at elevation, and it totally is again now. Before I'd left, I'd started throwing some volts, and the volt I really liked up at that high elevation because I could throw it as hard as I wanted and it just kept going straight. I wasn't getting turn out of them, so they showed really good resistance to any turn at high speed, but then they also didn't have a whole lot of fade. Now, down here, I am getting turn out of these, and I'm not sure that that's going to be a slot that I need. I'm not sure I need something between, you know, hard hit dead straight flyer and the Crave. But I'm still messing with it. We'll see. Once I realized that I was getting turn out of these here, I went back and started pulling out some Thunderbirds. This is Color Glow Madison Walker Thunderbird. This guy used to be nice and pink, but tons of sun fading, and you know, it's hardly got any of that pigment left in there. And this is what I'm looking for down here. I can release this just, you know, if I release it perfectly flat and give it a full amount of power, it just remains flat. And it goes out and lands about 40 feet short of my destroyers, even when I'm getting some flex on the destroyer. So it goes impressively far. I'm not using it in the woods quite so much, but if I need something that's more resistant to the wind and want to hit something in that, you know, 360 to 400 foot zone, this is just super dependable. I'm thinking it's probably going to have the volt taken out completely, and I've got a bunch of other Thunderbirds and different plastics to try out. So kind of in a little bit of a flex there on those. As for how it's going to shake out, I'm not sure. I did have this Thunderbird, or Firebird 2016 Sexton in the bag last time. I actually pulled it out not too long after that and started throwing the Castoplast. What's it called? I want to say Flare, but that's the stall, the Castoplast stall. And I leaned on those stalls for most of the last 6 months or so, and they just weren't quite cutting it. Once I got down here to lower elevation, I put this back in the bag, and immediately I was like, why was the stall in there so long? This Firebird just works so well. It's just another notch above that Color Glow Thunderbird as far as stability, especially throwing forehand. I noticed that I'll roll my wrist a little bit on the forehand and start to get turn out of that Thunderbird where I don't on backhand. And this is just enough more beef that it starts to cover up some of that sloppy wrist roll and wobble, and I can hit it pretty hard forehand, and it just locks in and just goes dead straight for a really long ways, and then has a hefty amount of fade. Also, if it's getting windy, and I'm even worried, it's so windy that I'm worried that Color Glow Thunderbird is going to handle up to the wind angle when I'm throwing it backhand. I feel like I have such better angle control backhand that I can use this in really high wind on those backhand throws and have a lot of confidence in what it's going to do. Now, I just went out and played a temp course, and I knew there was water shots out there, and it was forecasted to be windy. Of course, I didn't want to risk this guy, so I tossed in a backup, and I've had this in and out a couple times. This is a Lab Second, I don't know what, neutron plastic, whatever the equivalent is for Streamline, 168 gram flare. This is a serious notch in stability above that Sexton Firebird. And I knew that it was more beefy and didn't think that I needed that. I just put it in there kind of as a water disc. If I needed something generically overstable on those water shots, this would be the one. And when the wind kicked up, I want to say we had 20 plus, maybe pushing 25 mile an hour gusts of wind. And I was able to just rip this full speed, keeping it flat. And it did great for me in those high winds. Also, I've been playing some skip shots on some really technical low ceiling, tight gaps. And this has given me some really impressive skips. So definitely not one that I'm going to throw on every course, but it is something that's likely to stay in the bag, or at least keep getting pulled back in my bag for certain courses. Just really good. I like the amount of super beef on there. And my drivers have simplified quite a bit. I had a number of different things in here. I think I had Hades and Destroyers and Forces last time, and I've just gone full Destroyer. I've not had a reason to try anything else. My most understable Destroyer, my oldest one, has become very flippy down here. Of course, that's given me the opportunity to take some speed off of it and get some really nice low ceiling, flip up, and just a little bit of turn shots. I've hit some really long, very tight low gaps, pushing over 400 feet with this. Of course, it gets windy and stuff, and I can throw it for some high, crazy max distance lines, but that's generally not my game. I'm trying to hit low, tighter gaps, and this one's doing a lot of work for me in there. Next up in stability, this does have a relatively flat wing on it. This is bottom stamp. This bottom stamp run, I found quite a few that I like. I have a number of backups there, and enough dome on there you can hear a little heartbeat from it. This was kind of generically overstable Destroyer for me up at elevation, but down here this has movement. I can hyzer flip this thing, or if I send it flat, I do get a little bit of turn out of it. This one is pretty much doing what that last one was up at what I was seeing. That one do at high elevation. This one's doing it low elevation, so it's seeing a lot of throws right now. And then if the wind picks up at all, I'm going to a Halo Destroyer. And this is one of the more beefy Halo Destroyers I've got. This is what was kind of competing with the Force before, and it just does so much more down here. Even in pretty high wind, I can still hit it as hard as I want straight, and it doesn't get pushed off of that into any turn, but what it does is go a lot further than they were at high elevation. So I would be curious to pull the force back in and compare those two again. I haven't yet thrown the force down at this lower elevation. But this bag that I've just showed you has covered every shot that I need really well, and to be honest, there's so many more shot angles needed on these courses that I've been playing down here. I'm so excited to be in all these, you know, thick woods again and low ceilings, and just have to throw so many more shots than I used to. So it's been fun to see the mix up and change a bunch of discs in here. So we'll see. I will probably do another one next year, or maybe in a few months. We'll see, maybe spring, summer, if my bag is changed up again a bunch. So that's it. I don't want to go through all the other little things I've got in here. Do have a range finder off on the side, and I've been leaning on that very heavily. I've been really satisfied with this Bushnell. It seems a lot nicer than the loop-pulled one that I was using before. I can hit baskets and small targets from far away. No sponsorship or anything like that. That's just my opinion of it. I paid full price for this guy. I might try one of the new ones. It gives I think it gives elevation as well, which would be neat. But I've been leaning on that a lot. It's helped on all these new courses. So I hope you appreciate watching. Thanks for hanging out. See you next time.